Well, hi everyone, this is Dr. Schroeder with this week's video introduction to week number 3 of our course in evidence-based practice. And again, we had a pretty good discussion this week. Of course, it was fairly straightforward. It was essentially a twofold task. The first was to restate your PICO question based on and hopefully revised based on the feedback that you received in week number 1, and then to develop a search strategy for finding evidence or finding articles that would support your particular intervention or continue to support the problem or the population that you selected for your PICO. And this is an important part of the evidence-based practice process, is identifying and finding what the evidence is, because this is really what it all comes down to. As I've been saying all along, the goal here is not to conduct a nursing research study where you don't have any idea what the outcomes are going to be, or where you're just trying to identify some new tidbit of information that you can add to the nursing knowledge database. Rather, it's the other way around. Here you're searching the nursing databases. You're seeing what evidence is out there to support a particular intervention that you want to implement. And the really only study part of this whole process is once you implement the process is to come back and see, were the results which you anticipated that they thought they were going to be? And in other words, did you see the change in outcome that you anticipated you would based on what the evidence says? And so that's what that's really the way that this whole process works. And so the way that we do that, of course, is going into the professional databases such as EBSCO and PubMed and ProQuest and Cochrane and all the different ones that have been discussed, all the way going back to your nursing research course, and then using search words to find evidence. So I gave some of you some feedback that you have to make sure that you're using not just a couple of keywords. I mean, in other words, you just don't come up with a few and throw them out there and say, well, I got 5 articles back. That's really all that I need. You should be giving enough keywords and be including enough terms in the search to come back with a return of somewhere between 25 and 100 articles or so, or 25 and 150. That's kind of a soft number. It depends somewhat on the actual topic that you're researching. But some of you just came back with really just a few articles, and you didn't really use very many keywords. And the process is that they use different keywords to expand that search and to get a more thorough search. So what you're going to want to do for your evidence-based project part 1 is to use different keywords to try to expand that search if you didn't get enough articles already, or to include more terms that you would use. That's an important part of that. This is a building block process. So, even though you're through week number 2, the idea is that you take the feedback from this week and then continue to develop it as you move forward. And that includes also with the rewording and the revising of your PICO statements. I've given a lot of feedback in the class this week about exactly what a PICO is and how it should appear, how it should read. And so please review my feedback. If you're still concerned or still not sure exactly what you should be honing in on, or exactly what I mean when I say that you should have a measurable outcome, look back on my feedback, because I've given quite a bit in the class. This should help you with that. And if you have any questions, please feel free to go ahead and contact me at any time by email, and I'll help you guide you to the correct information. The other task that you had this week, I'm recording this on Sunday night, so it's actually due tonight on Sunday, is your experiential report, where you are interviewing would have interviewed a librarian, and I'll be grading those throughout the week. You'll be getting those probably sometime, I would anticipate by midweek. I will have those graded and be back to you. And I haven't looked over them yet, but usually most students find that that's a very useful exercise. And I encourage you that if you have trouble finding articles, or if you're not sure about what your keywords should be, your librarian is a person to talk to. They're the one that can really help you with this. And if you were smart, or at least being efficient, probably calling the librarian with your particular PICO in mind is probably a really good idea. And so going on to week number 3, we have 2 tasks. One is your evidence-based practice project part 1. is due. And this is an APA paper. Please review the rubric. But is really taking everything that we've done in class up till now and putting it into more of a formalized form. So you're going to discuss the problem statement for your particular problem that leads to you to a particular PICO, then your PICO statement, explaining all the different aspects of it, and then an explanation of your search strategy and your search results. That's really what's going to constitute that evidence-based practice part 1 project. Again, I'll be giving feedback throughout the week if you have any questions about that or any final questions, because this is really, it should be anyway, your final time to really go in and really revise that PICO statement, revise your, what it is that you're going to be looking for, because what you're going to do in Evidence-Based Practice Project 2 is coming up with an implementation plan. And if you don't have a fairly good idea about what it is that you're going to be implementing, you're going to have difficulty with that. So I encourage you, if you have questions, please post them in class or send me an email. In most cases, I would say just go ahead and post them in class, because then I can post them for everybody, and that will help. And then the discussion this week is looking at 2 different kinds of evidence. One is what's known as a meta-analysis, and another is an integrated review. They're similar, they're not necessarily identical, and so what we're going to do is review a meta-analysis and an integrated review, and then discuss if the authors used the correct methodology for each one of those reviews that they conducted. And as usual, your posts are due by Wednesday, with your follow-up post due by Sunday. You should be posting on different or subsequent days of the week, and make sure that your responses also, that they reflect back or they relate back to the actual discussion question. Some of the discussion responses, although good and not necessarily bad information, this last week have drifted off into the topics more focusing on the actual, not so much the evidence-based practice project, but more on discussion of the interventions that we're doing and whether they're positive or negative, and experiences in the hospital. And all that is good, but it really doesn't focus in on what is the key elements, which is the actual evidence-based practice project. So that's really the key part of the discussions. And if you have any questions about that, always please go ahead and let me know. So with that, I will leave you all to it. As always, I will be seeing you in the discussion forums and be responding to your questions. If you have any, please feel free to go ahead and post them. I'll clarify as I can. I hope you all have a great week. I hope that you all had a wonderful holiday this past week, and I will see you in the discussion forums.